Hey guys, this is Court here, and welcome to a very unoriginal video for you guys today. Today's video is going to be so freaking unoriginal that it's cringe, and I feel ashamed because I've seen literally millions of different furries on this freaking website who have made this exact same video. I've just seen a lot of them that have actually been making this kind of content about this specific type of topic for these videos. So essentially the discussion for today's video is whether or not being a furry is a lifestyle. Now, before we get started, I want to address again that this video is not original. Again, tons of other furries have made their own takes on it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a very similar take as a lot of other furries have had on whether or not this is a thing or not, like a lifestyle choice. But this is my YouTube channel, and I can do whatever the hell I want on my channel, except for use copyrighted music, curse too frequently, use footage from Nintendo games, or show nudity. But yeah, I can still pretty much do whatever the hell I want in my videos. But with that all explained and out of the way, let's get started with whether or not being a furry is a lifestyle. I don't know why I gotta put so much intensity into it, I'm weird. To start off this discussion of whether or not being a furry is a lifestyle, we first have to ask ourselves, what is a lifestyle? What is water? What is oxygen? Is water wet? Why do we exist? Are moms girls?
Are moms girls?
I'm not sure.
Well, technically...
Beats me.
I swear, Ed from Ed, Edd n Eddy had things that he said that still a lot of people have to ask about today. The definition of the word lifestyle means the way in which a person or group lives. Now, you can influence your lifestyle by many different things. You can have your lifestyle be involved around food. It can be involved around making money. It can be involved around you being involved with the church or whatever. So I guess you could say to an extent that being a furry can be somewhat of a lifestyle, but however, we have to ask ourselves, to what extent do you influence your life in terms of it being considered a lifestyle? Do you do a lot of things with your life that involve being a furry to the point where you say it's kind of a lifestyle kind of thing to be a furry? Do you not? Do you only have a little bit of stuff? That's a question you got to really ask yourself. Another question we have to ask, and this is something that more so people outside of the furry community tend to ask about furries, is that, is it a culture or not? It's definitely a fandom, and it can definitely be a lifestyle, but also we have to ask, is the furry fandom a culture? And we also have to ask again, what is a culture? The definition of culture is the arts and other manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively, or the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. I must say that if we're going off of the second definition of culture I presented here, we could say that being a furry kind of to an extent is kind of a culture, but also kind of not, because if you see achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group, furries don't kind of like have this like interconnected thing going on. Like, yeah, you can come together with other furries and like host a convention, or you can host a group or a meetup or whatever, but at the same time, there's not really like a goal. There's not really like an organization or foundation to it. Now that I think about that, we should start that. We should make a foundation or an organization involved with the furry community. Let's do that. I will be the CEO of Furry Co. or Furry.org or something like that. I call dibs on that domain name. Don't steal that from me, anyone watching this video. I call dibs. If we also go off of the first definition of culture I presented, you could definitely say that being a furry could be a culture, because if you consider the part of the definition that says manifestations of human intellectual achievement regarded collectively. So yes, you could say that like that could apply to furry art or fursuits or furry sculptures or animations or whatever the furry community tends to post online or at events that could be a form of art. Let's take a second to look at the culture wheel, which has all of the different aspects that can be involved with a culture, be it from a group of people to an organization or a community or whatever. These aspects from this example they give of a culture wheel basically represents like what makes up the culture altogether. Let's start off with values. Values of being a furry, I essentially do think its main kind of like priority is essentially just being into anthropomorphic animals. So yes, you could necessarily say that the values of being a furry, or at least the general basis of what makes you a furry or classified as one, could necessarily be just being into furries. Now, some people could also say maybe the political leanings could represent the values of being a furry, or it could be like maybe an apolitical kind of thing where it's just, oh, be a community, or, you know, hang out with people online or at conventions. That's more up to interpretation. It's a little bit vague with that. So that's how it would cover with values of the furry community when it comes to being a culture. The next one is greater community, like the structure or the foundation of how well a community functions. And I would say personally, I do think that the furry community, for the most part, with the exceptions of like some kind of like outliers in certain groups of furries, things tend to function pretty well for the most part. There hasn't been like major disasters that have happened at conventions or events involving the furry community outside of Rainforest, but we're not going to mention that because I want to keep ads on this video. The next one is knowledge and stories. Now, when it comes to knowledge, there can be knowledge of how to do artwork. There could be knowledge of how to make fursuits. Stories-wise, you could also write literature involving the furry community. You can tell stories about things that have happened to you at conventions or things that have happened to you at meetups. Language, on the other hand, I would say this one's a little bit more funny to me to bring up, because if you think about like language in the furry community or the furry culture, I typically think of ooh, OWO, squishy face, putting any verb or action verb in asterisks and making it italicized when you text it to someone, putting 3 dots at the end of every sentence when you're mad at someone. A lot of that comes into play with the furry lingo, if that makes sense. When it comes to traditions and rituals, I guess you could say that the furry community, like in conventions or so, there's a rule. Don't desuit in front of people that are not suitors. Only desuit in the desuiting area, because you can get kicked out of conventions, which in my opinion is really stupid. But I guess you could say that's kind of like a tradition or a ritual or so. When it comes to techniques and skills, you could say that a lot of furries are into computer programming, or a lot of furries are into mathematics, which is a big kind of like educational field that a lot of furries go into. A lot of them also get involved with tech. A lot of furries are also into visual arts or arts and crafts or programming. Tools and objects could also involve, you know, things that can necessarily keep the furry community going. You could be from selling fursuits or having furry sculptures or also having furry art to commission. When it comes to the arts, we could say that a lot of it ties back to a lot of animation. A lot of it ties back into zoology. A lot of it ties back into drawing artwork. And the last one I have to bring up is food and drink. Now, this one doesn't necessarily have something, I would say, to really define it with the furry community, because furries can eat whatever the hell they want. There's not really like a set basis of what you have to eat. But I must say that if we go off of my last video I made about making a furry pizza delivery service, that way we can bring back the furry economy from the pandemic, I could say that a lot of furries could eat pizza, which could seem pretty accurate, I guess. I don't know if it's more so like an edgelord thing or not, but maybe in terms of like drink, maybe you could say like energy drinks like Monster Energy or Red Bull or something like that. I don't know. And that pretty much wraps up all the aspects of the culture wheel that could apply to being a furry. So with everything being presented, I would say it's pretty accurate to say that the furry community can also be a culture, so a furry culture can exist. The last major thing I want to cover for this video before we end it off today is that we have to also ask ourselves, though, with the fact that you can definitely make the furry community a lifestyle choice, or it could be a culture for you, you also need to ask specifically to you yourself, to what extent of a furry are you? To what extent do you want to take this? It's your choice. Now, to present you guys an idea of how to find out to what extent of a furry you want to be, I have devised an ingenious and definitely not completely unoriginal idea to help you guys understand which pathway to take with the furry community. And that is essentially the Furry Measurement Map. Now, I understand that this is based off of the political compass map, but at the same time, I have my own little unique spin onto it. And I also want to make sure that I'm pretty sure I'm going to piss off a few people with this. Again, this is just my own idea. Don't think I'm trying to push some kind of agenda with this, because I get comments like that all the fucking time. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. Anyways, now let's first explain how the furry identification map really works on both an X and Y axis. On the X axis, you have yourselves the authoritarian and libertarian leanings of being a furry. The more authoritarian you go with being a furry, that's more reserved to being a furry, not as open about being a furry to people. And the more libertarian you go with being a furry, the more likely you are to be way more open and expressive about being a furry. And when it comes to the y-axis of the furry identification map, this is leaning more towards left-leaning or right-leaning kind of furries. The farther left you go, that means the more involved with the furry community you are with your time and your life overall, and the more right-leaning you are with the furry, like the less over time involvement with the furry community you are. If I had to give my general take on where I would lean on the furry side, I would say that I fall right around here. The reason that I say this is because I definitely am a more left-leaning furry. I have quite a bit of my life and time involved with being a furry. Like I have a lot of my time go towards my YouTube videos that come to being a furry. My partner is a furry. A lot of the people that I talk to online that are my friends, both IRL and online, are furries. Quite a bit of my money goes towards these YouTube videos, which again tie back to being a furry. So a decent chunk of my life revolves around the furry community. And also when it comes to me being slightly libertarian leaning with being a furry, I would say that applies to the fact that I'm not really super open about being the furry. I would say I open up to a couple people that are interested in the conversation or topic comes up to where I should bring up the fact that I am a furry. But I don't tell everyone about it. I only tell people that ask about it or it comes up in conversation or like, hey, do you have a YouTube channel? Yeah, here's my YouTube channel. And they're like, oh, you're a furry. And that's essentially where it ends. Anyways, guys, at the end of the day, it all comes down to personal choice. It all comes down to where you feel comfortable with being a furry in this community, to what extent you feel like you have to be a furry. There's not like a requirement. It just comes down to what makes you most comfortable. And with that all being said, that's pretty much going to wrap up this video for you guys today. How do you guys feel about the concept of the furry community being a lifestyle or a culture? Do you guys think it is? Do you guys think it's not? Where do you guys fall along the lines of the furry identification map? Let me know down in the comment section down below. If you enjoy my content and want to further help out my channel, please consider donating to me on Patreon as well as my coffee. Remember to smash that like button, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe all together. Thank you guys again so much for watching this video. I've been Seethercord, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.